Hello and welcome to the show. I am your host, Man Sherman, and you are watching One Man's Worldview. This is my first podcast video, and I'd like to thank everybody who supported me. I send shots out to my friends and family, and once again, thank you. Now, first of all, I want everybody to know to make sure that you hit the like and the subscribe. Help a brother out, get his ratings up, and I hope you enjoy the content. So let's go. First of all, I'd like to talk about the government and also about what had happened on January the 6th. I'm a little late with this because, by the time you look at this video, it'll probably be well after January 6th. But nevertheless, I want to talk about the powers that be compared to basically the power of the people. So it's kind of like a versus thing. The powers that be versus the power of the people. I want to start off with reading an article. It's kind of lengthy, but we're going to try to run through it. That way we can get a better understanding of what this video is all about. Let me remove this hat right here out the way. And give me a moment to pull this up. I'm going to share this article with you. And the name of the article is The Right to Alter or Abolish the Government. And it's by Gerald R. Thomas. He's with the Long-Nang Institute. Long-Nang Institute. All right. So give me just a moment here. I'm going to pull this up. All right, I got it pulled up here finally. Now, like I said, this is The Right to Alter or Abolish the Government. This is by Gerald R. Thomas. I will post the link at the bottom of my page if you want to read the article in its entirety or any other resource on this link. It's by, like I said, Long-Nang Institute. I hope I'm saying that right. We're going to start off by reading here. If I was to tell you, without qualification, that the American people have the God-given right to alter or abolish the U.S. government or any state government and replace them with something new, how would that strike you? So he's asking the question. Would you reject the idea because it is only me who is saying this? Does the idea seem too radical, too extreme? Would it make a difference if we realize that without this type of radical extremist thinking, that there wouldn't even be a United States at all? Let's put it in context. We told these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator without certain unalienable rights, that to secure these rights, government or our, I can't even read, give me a chance here, y'all. Governments are instituted among men, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So basically, what it's saying is that you have the right to do something about the government if it's threatening your livelihood, your prosperity, your happiness, your well-being. Let's skip on down here. Let's give some little definitions here. Rebellion or insurrection. Whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engage in any rebellion or any insurrection against the authority of the United States or laws thereof shall be fined under a title imprisonment, not more than 10 years, or both. Seditious conspiracy. If two or more persons in any place subject to jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force a government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force authority thereof, they shall each be fined under this title, or imprisoned not more than 20 years, or both. Bear with me here. Advocating overthrow of the government. Whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises, or teaches the duty necessary and desirable of priority of overthrowing, of destroying the government of the United States or government of any states by force of violence shall be fined under the title imprisonment not more than 20 years or both. Now, he said, just let these words sink in. First, we have to quotations of for finding a document nations the beloved, cherished Americans for well over 200 years. And in fact, the people have not only the right, but the duty to throw off an abusive, despotic, tyrannical government, which tramples on our individual rights as citizens. Then it goes on to say, then we have the laws enacted by the same nation having the primary purpose of ensuring that no one ever overthrows a site existing the government, conspires to overthrow it, or advocate its overthrow without the regard of whether those actions might actually be justified because the government has become abusive, despotic, or tyrannical, which illustrates truism. The people have absolutely the right to alter or abolish any given form of government, but the persons in power absolutely would never want people to exercise their right. So basically what this article is saying, that you have the right to do this, but at the same time they make up these laws to make sure that you don't try it. You have the right, but go ahead and try it if you want to. You will be met with force. It should be painfully obvious that this is one reason, among others, why Declaration of Independence has not been seriously regarded as a law by legal scholars for over 100 years, and why it has been degenerated in an academy. If people actually took words of Declaration at face value, would create all kinds of problems for the modern world. The people in academia, law, and government have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. In other words, the higher ups, like generals, captains of the military, and lieutenants, majors, they have a reason. You got these Supreme Court justice type people, they have a reason. You got congressmen, and then you got the cabinet, the president itself. They got self-interest in maintaining their power. Now, belief in government is a limit powers, or God help us, a government that can be discarded from time to time. Will put politicians and government workers all strike, just like I said, and as well those in the symbiotic field of law and education. And when they talk about law and education, they talking about laws that the elite made up, and the education that the victors of the war have, put in their textbooks to teach, the population and program them. It's never always the whole truth. at risk for losing their jobs and intolerable risk. This is one reason why mainstream political culture left worldwide American founders an ash heap of history long ago. However, I believe the Declaration yet has things to teach us, and not only has value about authority to deal with pressure issues, overreaching or overregulating, abusive, and dare I say increasingly tyrannical American government, both state and federal. And I like to show that the ideas of an embodiment of declarations are really not radical or extreme at all. In fact, it's not even complicated. Not by force or violence. Alright? I'm not advocating for any violence. Me neither. I'm not advocating for any violence. So let's keep on down here. The right to alter, abolish the government is a natural right and is perfectly capable of being exercised lawfully without the force of violence. The law of nature's God allowed for a way to actually several ways to bring about fundamental government change peacefully without armed conflict. So he's saying basically there's ways to do it without, going in there and knocking somebody's teeth down their throat to make them do right or get the hell on. Most likely scenarios doing such things in America would be through a convention of states, either pursuit of Article 5 U.S. Constitution part or through the Congress state. At the state level, the people can similarly call the Constitution conventional directly. Now I want to skip on down here on this article. Now, it says something like, are you surprised that the current U.S. government labels the Tea Party members as libertarians and militant groups as domestic terrorists? Yeah. I'm not surprised that the CIA got them on the terrorist list. I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA personally got me on the terrorist list. I mean, y'all would be surprised what the CIA is up to. And it's never anything good. Think about it. If one person can tell me something good that the CIA did, I'll find $1,000 to get you, because I don't think you can. Alright. This article goes on, talks about different ways that we can, protest the government. But we're going to have to start waking up to certain things, like when they give us a choice, when we go in these elections and they give us a choice to choose this person or that person, you got to remember one thing. They chose those people to be up there. They already bought, paid for, and ready to go for these corporations. That's why I'm in the sense of thinking that we need to abolish parties and elect individuals for their beliefs and individual characteristics. Like MLK said, not about the color of the skin, but the content of the character. Screw a party. Why you need to be in a party all the time? If you're partying all the time, you ain't serious. That means your thoughts will not be your thoughts. You have to go along with the mass vote of, the party, instead of just going by your constituents and what they want. You won't fight for it, and they're bagging in the corner. I would even dare to say that some of these politicians are already, time they win office, they get in there and they think they're finna do something. I wouldn't be surprised if CIA officials threaten them and their family not to go too far. I wouldn't be surprised at all. The government got us by the balls, really, to tell you the truth. And we gonna have to play their game in order to even win anything over. I mean, we're going to have to infiltrate. You have to get in there, act like you're going to play by the rules. And then once you get in there, break every single promise that you made to the people that's trying to keep you, keep the status quo going. I mean, that's the way it's going to have to be played. It's going to have to be, we're going to sneak a person into power in order to get them to make changes. I mean, that's what the CIA and The deep state do. They put the choices up there and say, okay, there are your choices. Who you want in power? And at the same time, we didn't choose neither one of them to be up there. You just throw this at us as if there's nothing else. And people, y'all gotta understand, that's more than the Republican and Democratic parties. There are different parties in America. It's just the main media. I'm not gonna say media, main media. I'm gonna say corporate media. They are not gonna say anything about these people or their point of views. So y'all got to remember that when you go to the ballot vaults, look at the other choices. If neither one of them look good, I put my own name down to be president of the United States. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind being president, but I'm going on a rant. Next thing I want to do is talk about, there's a video that I came across, and it relates to what we're talking about today. All right. I want to play this video, and I want to comment on it, and it's relating to what I'm talking about right now. This video is from RT. I will have the link of the video at the bottom of the page here on the channel for everybody to see and view for themselves. But with that said, let's get it going.
Republican voters, they're very interested in just trying to find people who are loyal to the Trump brand, who are going to try to find a way to change the voting laws in this country to make sure that Republicans win rather than earning the vote. They're essentially trying.
You heard what she said? Change the laws. Make it harder for people to vote. See, that's one of the things that one of those defensive shields that CIA officials and other government officials put into play. See, when you're trying to make changes to the government to help the people, they put these things, these barriers in your way to keep you from doing that because they have an interest in keeping their power. I just had to say that.
Trying to make sure that they can just ensure that they can install people. And that is the way that democracies die.
Yes, folks, no matter how many gains the Republicans make in the midterms in November, they cheated. And it's the end of democracy. Joining me now is Professor of Political Science, host of the PAS Report, Nicholas Giordano. Professor, welcome back. Do you agree with me that the Democrats and their enablers in the media, like Yamachi Alcindor, have a goal, and that's to claim in advance that the gains that are sure to be made by Republicans in November's midterms are going to be illegitimate, a threat to or the end of democracy, and therefore do not accept those results?
Well, by all indications, there's going to be a red wave, and so they're ready.
And by the way, I am not a right-winger. I do not agree with right-wingers. But sometimes a stop clock is right twice a day. You know what I'm saying? So, what they're saying here is basically truth, but you got to deep dive into their words of what they're saying. Let's continue.
Setting it up where those results should be questioned and challenged. And this has all been a slow motion train wreck. Everyone knew that the Democrats were going to take advantage of what took place on January 6th, where almost every single Republican and conservative universally condemned what happened. They're using January 6th, and this is the impetus behind the national.
They didn't condemn crap. That's why you got most of them still under Trump's control. They ain't condemn crap. You know, y'all got to understand this is performative. Or some of a bitch will lie in front of the camera just to get people off of them. But you need to always look at what these people do. Don't listen to what they're saying. Look at their actions and go by that. If people start looking up these people's records and start going by what they are doing, then we'll have better officials in power. But that's not what's going on. They campaign all around the country. They talk their rhetoric. They make promises they just can't keep. You be hoping that candidates keep their campaign promises, but they never do that. They just say lies to get elected. Once they get in there, they just tote the status quo on and on. So you just keep that in mind. This is nothing but a biased video right here, but some of these things ring true. So let's continue.
Strategy for countering domestic terrorism. They're using it to justify the government, the build out of the surveillance state. And when you look at the words that were used when describing January 6th, comparing it to 9/11 and Pearl Harbor and the Holocaust, understand that those words were chosen carefully. It's not like, they just slipped and they over exaggerated. It went through speechwriters, people looked at those speeches, and then they approved them, loaded them onto the teleprompter, and the politicians gave those speeches. And it's designed to empower the federal government to target political opposition. That's what we're seeing today. And that's actually the true threat to democracy that we're seeing.
Could be. Now on Wednesday, talk about frightening, we got this from the Attorney General of the United States.
The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law, whether they were present that day or were otherwise criminally responsible for the assault on our democracy.
Now, what did that article say, y'all? Let me show you something what I mean. Let's go back to what it's saying here. Whoever incites, sets foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or any insurrection against the authority of the United States or laws, therefore, shall be fined under the title imprisonment not more than 10 years or both, right? Advocating to overthrow the government. I'm going to skip that middle one because this is something he said, but he's saying in so many words here. Whoever knowingly is willfully advocates to abets, advise, and teaches the duty, the necessary, desirable, or proprietary overthrowing, the destroying the government of the United States or government of any state by force or violence shall be fined under the time of imprisonment not more than 20 years or both. So, like you said, let that sink in. Like you can't really overthrow the government with your constitutional right. That's null and voided because of these laws that they had put into place to keep any type of threat for changing anything for the good of the people. Let's go back to this video and let's continue.
Now, what does that mean, Professor? Can you see this extending to those who simply question the election results? Because that's what the media and the Democrats have been pushing. That, first it was Trump incited the riot by what he said on that day. When they couldn't prove that, well, he told the big lie for months leading up to it. And this one questioned the election results. So anybody who did that at all could be in the crosshairs of this Attorney General.
Well, look at what he said, whether they were present or not. That's the key phrase. And what I find interesting, once again, taking it back to the National Strategy of Countering Domestic Terrorism, is if you look on page 10, it says that the narratives questioning the election of 2020, the narratives of January 6th, that could lead to incitement. It could lead to incite domestic violent extremists, and therefore you could be declared anti-government, anti-authority, and domestic terrorist. So yeah, I do believe that they're looking to expand it, and we know they are. I mean, just look at Merrick Garland and all he's done at the Attorney General's office, where he wants to target and threat tag parents that complain at school boards. He wants to target his political opposition. You have the United States Postal Service has a program called ICOP that nobody really talks about, but they monitor social media, what Americans are posting on social media. What does mail have to do with what Americans are posting on social media? You have the FBI that has been lambasted over the course of the last 3 years about continually illegally getting information on Americans by accessing the NSA repository for information on Americans. So we see this continued abuses, but nobody talks about it. Nobody
talks about it. Nobody don't have the balls to say anything about it. Because as soon as you get any kind of flow of any type of influence, they coming at you. They'll start off by smearing you, and if they can't get that going, mess with your finances. If they can't get that going, they'll start trying to mess with your life, like with your family. And if they can't get doing it, here come the police, here come the military. And if they can't get there, they'll ultimately just assassinate you. Look what happened to JFK. He wanted to scare the CIA 1,000 pieces to the wind. And that just blew the man away. This is the time that we're living in, folks. It's very dangerous. Everybody's walking around like they got power over their life, but you're sheeple. Wake up.
He talks about it. And what is really frightening is the silence from the Republicans, that they don't sit there and they don't push.
The silence because they're complicit. The Democrats and the Republicans are complicit with each other. They just go about a different way of having the status quo maintain itself. But they all bought by the same people. Probably every war since World War II had ended, every war after that was funded by the same people for both sides. Y'all have to understand, we arm people to try to go take care of some other government and everything. The United States is guilty of this crap. Let's continue.
Back, sure, they spoke up about the school board meetings, but they don't speak up about this national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. And when we look at the word domestic enemies, understand that it was used long before January 6th. Speaker Pelosi used domestic enemies in September of 2020 to describe Republicans and her political opponents.
Yeah, when in fact we could certainly make an argument that the reverse is true when it comes to being the enemy of democracy. All right, watch this.
That we'll make some recommendations in terms of legislation to hopefully, if adopted, this will never ever happen again. I've been a member of Congress.
What kind of legislation?
Now, you see what he just said? We're going to try to make it where this never happens again. So what does that mean? It'll never happen again. Well, if the government decides to just start bombing New York, start bombing certain areas in the United States, start killing off its own citizens, is that what you mean? It'll never happen again. You're going to put these laws in place to make sure that people cannot protest the government, because that's what it's doing. And they framing it in a way as like the government is the victim. The government is not the victim. Come on, y'all. Come on. These folks, they're hypnotized. They brainwashed, or either they're just being intellectually dishonest at the most. Just intellectually dishonest and just trying to play us like boo-boo the fool.
Who can prevent that?
Our intelligence gathering components.
All right, that's the chairman of the January 6th committee predicting new legislation to improve intelligence gathering against.
And don't get me wrong, I don't agree with them attacking the building and everything and busting out windows and cops dying and a woman getting shot and all. I don't agree with that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is no matter what level of controversy or complaints, any kind of adversarial mood towards the government, I don't care if it's just the minuscule of just free speech, they coming after you. Look what happened after George Floyd and all those people protested. What the police do? They went on a rampage. They started beating everybody's ass. It doesn't matter what level of protest you go against the government, where it's the minimum amount of speech, or where you come up against it with your guns and your gas. It doesn't matter what level you take it to. The government's going to put a law in place and make it look like they're the victim and you're the one that's in the wrong, even though they're the ones that been trying to push you to do wrong in the first place. They push you to these points. Your environment, the reason why you can't afford something from the next paycheck to the next paycheck, because of the system. Don't try to blame it anecdotally on your job just by itself, but the system is designed to keep regular people down, because if they don't keep you down, then they're threatened. Their power is threatened. Believe that.
potential domestic threats. Another example of what we've been talking about here, exploiting January 6th for nefarious purposes.
Well, we keep hearing what they want to do is they want to import the war on terror, the tools that we use in the war on terror to be used against American citizens. That's what they want to do. And I find it really interesting because we keep on hearing talk about these organizations that are a threat to democracy and everything. If you look at terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, if you look at organized crime, the Italian mob or the Mexican cartels, we have entire flow charts, the command and control structures, who's in charge of these organizations, who are the leaders within the.
They got organizations like Black Lives Matter listed as a domestic terrorist threat. Are you kidding me? Seriously. When black people try anything, man, it can be the smallest thing in the world. Man, somebody's coming after us. It doesn't matter. They tell us to pull us up by our bootstraps, and when they do that, they come along up under us and cut our bootstraps out from under us, don't they? They just cut them straps. It doesn't matter. We can't even have a slogan saying Black Lives Matter because the police keep shooting unarmed black men. We on the endangered species list, for God's sake. And you wonder why violence gets incited by the people? The government calls it. I mean, they don't want to leave us alone. They don't want us to have our freedom. They just say freedom, but they don't do freedom. Continue.
Organization, you don't see any of that being released by the government. You don't see the names of the organizations that they're really talking about. You don't see any command or control structure. What's these organizations' operational capability?
I've seen it.
You don't see any of that, yet they keep on talking about these organizations that are such a threat to democracy. Well, then put out their names. What are they capable of? Why are they such a threat? Explain it to us. But they haven't done it. Instead, they use...
How are they a threat? Y'all the one with the nukes? Where we a threat at? Stupid.
Vague terminology. They use these vague threats, and they want to make it as open-ended as possible because that's what allows them to target political opponents.
Absolutely. It leaves it wide open. They could just write it in as they go along. Now to the media's role in all this. Watch.
The destruction of democracy is not a 2020 story. It's not a 2021 story. It's going to be with us.
Oh, yeah, they had the nerve and the gumption and the unction to actually compare this to 9/11. Man, it wasn't nothing but a bunch of Trump supporters, black and white, Mexican, whoever, a mixture of them, but mostly white. It wasn't nothing but a bunch of supporters overrun the building because they didn't want Joe Biden to be president. It's just that simple. It was unlawful. It was wrong, probably, because it was violent. But, man, anyway.
Into 2022, it's going to be less splashy. It's going to be in state houses and the Supreme Court and in Congress, and it's not going to necessarily come dressed up as an insurrection.
So just like racism has been redefined by the left and the media to fit any story that benefits their radical narrative, insurrection and threat to democracy are added now to that list.
Those words matter. When they start throwing those terms around, it's dangerous. That's why the media is so dangerous. They frame everything to fit the narrative. They frame everything to fit the narrative. You gotta watch what people are saying on the news. CNN, MSN, Fox News, all of these folks, because they're paid by the same corporation that's paying these politicians. Yeah. Lockheed Martin, Pfizer, ExxonMobil. Man, y'all gotta watch it. Why will Boeing have a commercial during a news broadcast? Who's in the market to buy a 747? So, people wake up. I call it the tell lie vision. And if you want to put it another way, television programming. Yeah. It's a teleprogram. It's there for you to download stuff. Question everything you have ever learned about history. Because the people who won the war, they're the ones that write the history. Continue.
And it includes legislation, Supreme Court decisions, concerned parents, you name it.
Well, I would argue that democracy is in danger because we have elected and appointed officials who have no regard for the Constitution or the people they serve. They have no regard and want to just rule by authoritarian decrees, bypassing state legislative bodies and Congress. Democracy is in danger.
That's what we just got to talk about in that article.
Representatives continue to weaponize our institutions and target ordinary Americans, target anyone who dissents from their political narrative. That's where democracy is in danger. Democracy's
exactly, but yet they try to reverse it and frame it in the way that, like, the government is the victim and everybody else is the people, the violators. You know what I'm saying? They the one with all the power. They got all the guns. What are they talking about? These people are sick.
It's in danger when you have a federal agency that can sit there, create a BS investigation into a duly elected president because they don't like him and they wanted to try and take him down. I find that to be a real threat to democracy because that's what they do in banana republics. And this is exactly what we see in third world countries. So that's why democracy is really in danger. And if you listen to the Democrat logic, in order to save the republic, in order to save democracy, we must destroy it. We must get rid of the filibuster. We must change the way the Senate operates. We have to change the way elections are held and federalize those elections.
Exactly.
We have to add justices to the Supreme Court. We have to disqualify hundreds of Republicans from running for office. And only that, by destroying democracy, can we actually save it. That's the logic they're going by.
Right. And of course, their new definition of the new democracy will not be anything like democracy at all.
All right. Enough of that. As I was saying before, they got us by the balls. If you protest the government and it's doing something wrong to you, they're going to violently retaliate. They will go to that level. And we just have to watch ourselves, people, and hope that one day some form, some group, somebody will infiltrate the government and make some strong changes in the way that we live our life in society. And as I was saying, it doesn't matter what you do. You try to protest against the government, expect them to fight you back. We gotta stop being scared. We need to abolish the Democrat or Democrat and the Republican or the Republicans. We need to abolish those parties and never come up with parties again, and have individual civilians, working people in these places of power. When you got somebody in a place of power for 30 or 40 years, they can give a damn about people. They just want to keep their position of power. And that's basically the moral of this story. Don't rock the boat. Just might choke. You might croak trying to rock the boat. This is Mad Sherman. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you like my content. And everybody, you have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening. Peace. I'm out.